Chairman Grassley, Ranking Member Wyden, and members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to be here today on behalf of my mother, Sonia Fisher. My mother, suffering from advanced Alzheimer's, was a Medicare patient at Walker Methodist Healthcare Center in Minneapolis. On December 18, 2014, at 4 a.m., a nurse walked into her room and witnessed a male caregiver, George Kapingba, raping my mother. My mother had suffered from Alzheimer's for 12 years. She was totally immobile, unable to speak, and fully dependent on others for her care. When I saw the nursing home's number on caller ID, I prepared myself for the worst, that my mother had passed away after so many years struggling with Alzheimer's. I was not prepared for what I heard. A nurse informed me that my mother had been sexually assaulted and was being transported to the hospital. And just like that, my mother became another statistic in the shocking reality of nursing home abuse. My mother, however, was so much more than a statistic, so please allow me to tell you about her. My mother was born in Jakarta, Indonesia in 1931. In 1942, the Japanese army invaded the Indonesian islands. In the horror of war, soldiers were raping and killing women and young girls. My grandparents were left with no other option but to flee their homeland with their 12-year-old daughter. My mother ended up in the United States, becoming a U.S. citizen and building a life for herself here in this country. She was a testament to the American dream. In this country, she was safe and she was happy, a world removed from the horrors of her youth. It is impossible to imagine that at the end of her life, when she had no ability to fend for herself, that she would suffer the very same horror her parents had fled their homeland to protect her from. At 83 years old, unable to speak, unable to fight back, she was more vulnerable than an infant when she was raped. The dignity which she always displayed during her life, which had already been assaulted by her disease, was dealt a further devastating blow by her caregiver. I received a phone call that this unthinkable act had been committed against my mother during the week of Christmas 2014. This news was devastating not only for its immediate shock, but how it affected the memories we had of my mother and Christmases past. Now and for the rest of my life, when I think of my mother at Christmas, I will think of that horrifying call. The sense of helplessness I felt trying to comfort her while she had a rape kit performed on her will always remain with me. As will the 9 hours I spent in the emergency room with her and the fear she must have felt with the bright lights and scary noises of monitors going off. I will remember the pain she went through having an IV drip so that at 83 she didn't contract a sexually transmitted disease. My final memories of my mother's life now include watching her bang uncontrollably on her private parts for days after the rape, with tears rolling down her eyes, apparently trying to tell me what had been done to her, but unable to speak due to her disease. I still feel the guilt of not being able to take care of her myself and having to entrust her care to others, only to have her subjected to this unthinkable assault. I remember the difficult decision we had to make when we realized we could no longer care for her at home. We understood that we had to pick a nursing home for her, and we did everything we could to find the best place. We assured my mother that she would be safe and that she wouldn't suffer. I can never overcome the guilt of realizing that these promises were not kept. She was not safe. She was raped. Could this rape have been prevented? It is my understanding that other residents had previously complained of sexual misconduct while Mr. Kapingba worked at the nursing home. I have learned that the Department of Health investigated these prior complaints, did nothing, and kept them hidden. I can't help but wonder how my mom's, my family, and my life would be different if the department had not kept these allegations hidden. Families struggle to care for their loved ones, do everything they can to find the best possible care and to make the best decision possible. We rely on information provided by the Department of Health, and we must have access to all of this information. Please consider what I have shared with you today, how this crime has changed our lives forever, how it stole away the last shred of dignity that my mother had, and it tarnished the memory of a decent and loving woman who had already suffered enough.